You're listening to Justice League Dimension Leap. The following evening, a recovered Diana arrived at Bruce's house to finally confront this man claiming to be Steve Trevor. Bruce had kept him locked up ever since the night of the party, but he would not let Diana near him until she composed herself. Somehow, she had convinced him that she did not plan on removing the man's head from his shoulders, but even if that wasn't the case, Bruce had urged her to come hear the guy out, thus letting the wild animal into the lamb's pen. Alfred greeted Diana at the door and brought her down to the Batcave. Alfred must have attempted small talk, to which Diana must have answered, yet she couldn't hear what either of them had said through her own thoughts of revenge. Bruce must have sensed her rage still simmering as she reached the cave entrance, for he immediately tried to talk her down. Fully dressed in his Batman attire, he slow-walked her to where he was holding the alleged Steve Trevor. Now, Diana, I know you're still fuming, but I wouldn't have brought you here if I didn't think that I needed to have you at least hear the guy out. Diana looked at him with disgust. You want me to hear out the guy that impersonated a dead man from World War I? I know Trevor was more to you than a fallen World War I vet, Diana. But that's beside the point. This guy, whoever he is, has quite a story to tell that I want you to hear. For the first time, Diana wavered in her desire for revenge and wondered what this man's true purpose in arriving here was. She relented. All right, Bruce, what's he got to say? The Trevor imposter seemed no worse for the wear. Despite his brief imprisonment, Batman had a reputation for a harsh hand. He instantly lit up at the sight of Diana and began to croon. Diana, I'm so glad you came to see me. Enough, barked Batman. I want you to tell her everything you've told me. Start from the beginning, and maybe when you finish, I'll let you out of here. Trevor looked from Batman to Diana, who stood side by side with fists clenched and arms crossed, respectively. So he began. The last time Diana saw me was in 1918, right before the war ended. I had boarded a plane loaded with poisonous chemicals that was intended for a major attack, and my intent was to explode it and prevent the spread of damage as best I could. Well, I set the detonator and waited for it to go off. It seemed like forever, even though it couldn't have been more than a minute, when I heard what I thought was the beginning of the explosion. But it never finished. The next thing I knew, I was in a room, a circular stone room at the top of a tower in Eastern Europe. I think I'd been unconscious, because I remember the numbness of my cheek that had been resting on the cold floor, and how it stung with pain as I rubbed it to life. Somebody had left food there. Just bread and water, but it was more than I remembered eating in a long time. After I'd eaten, I looked for a window or a door, or some other way to get out. I hadn't looked for long when they came in. Who? Asked Diana. My masters, the ones who enslaved me. They took me down from the tower and hooked me up to a machine where they seemed to read my mind. After a few rounds in the machine, they discussed everything that had been in my head. Things that only I could have known, and things so long forgotten it was jarring to hear them spoken of again. You couldn't have been the only one who they put into that mind machine, interrupted Batman. There had to be others. I think there were others. I thought there was a woman there once, but I can't remember. Trevor paused. Go on, said Batman sternly. After they were done with me, Trevor continued slowly, they put me in a cryo-freeze chamber, laid me on my back, and froze me for a later date. They woke me up a few times over the years to go through my memories again, every time with better technology. When I was awake, I would live in the tower. But when I was frozen, I would live underground with the other cryo-freeze chambers. I guess that's how I knew there were others having their memories searched. How did you get out? Asked Diana, her face never changing. I walked out. It was like they wanted me to leave but never said anything. One day, everybody seemed to disappear. There was no one around. I literally walked outside and followed the old train tracks into the city. I was shocked to see how the world had changed. I must have been asleep for 100 years. But not only that, there was something strange that it took me far too long to figure out. None of the names were the same. Some of the cities that I knew of didn't exist. I finally realized after all this time that I'd not only come into a different century, but also a different dimension.